Hello, you're back with a single malt review. I'm Dave, this is Tim, and today we're off into uncharted waters and territories with this fine sampling of Scandinavian whiskey. This is from Berry Brothers and Rudd, BBR. It's an independently bottled, curated set. This is sampler number 2
It
of
is.
assorted Scandinavian offerings.
Bloody well going to Norway for this one, among other Scandi countries, to explore the wonderful world, and it really is pretty weird and wonderful, of Scandinavian distilling, which has been quietly distilling away in there for donkey's years, and we've had glances with it, but it's kind of one of our many blind spots.
They
in there,
have been
in
creeping onto
international
the
distilling.
Anglophonic whisky scene in recent years and making quite an impact with innovation and improvisation and very wacky casks and smoking and malt offerings. And just
And there they are.
yes.
So thank you to Berry Brothers and Rudd for making this one a lot of possible to conceptualise here. And thank you mostly to Mr. Heiner. It's another Heiner joint.
Oh, yeah.
Put your hands together. The whiskey enabler himself has
Yes.
done it again, without which we would not be able to sample these ourselves. So cheers for that one. This one has conspicuously been in the walls a wee bit. It's taken an arrow to the knee at one point, but not to worry. So let me fish out the first one. Ooh, I knew this was going to go bad. Here we are. Let's see what we've got here while I tidy this
Oh,
one.
wow. This is our first cask strength offering. This is from distillery in Denmark by the name of Thy.
Thy, spelled Thai.
Thy, like the English word thy, but I believe pronunciation is closer to Thy. Apologies, I am not a Danish speaker. I was a German major. But I believe there is some similarity there. Anyway, that aside, this is from the Berg series. It is a beech smoked whiskey. So not peated, but malted and smoked using beech. And this is roughly 3 years old. A 2019 vintage, bottled 2022. So a young whiskey at a truly eye-watering
that can't have come down by much.
57.6% ABV, matured in quarter casks.
Pretty wonkers strong. So this one, I was trying to think, what do I know about Scandinavian distilling? How can I conceptualize this in one summary? And it was a bit of a moment, but actually this one kind of does describe it. I think what brings Scandinavian whiskey into one group, as best as I can reckon it, is that it's all a wee bit different from the norm. People always talk about the one that gets the word of mouth is the sheep dung smoked from Floki, I think, does it in Sweden somewhere. I could be completely wrong, but that was what my brain reached out and suggested. And that's the sort of stuff that does the word of mouth. But it doesn't all have to be that extreme, and it isn't. But it is all a wee bit different. For this one being the prime example, no sheep dung required, but beech smoked, making this a smoked whiskey rather than a peated whiskey.
Yeah.
This actually has a lot more in common to New Zealand whiskey than it does with anything coming out of Scotland, because we make a lot of smoked whiskey here, a conspicuous amount of smoked whiskey because of the Manuka phenomenon.
Yeah.
And some of it's even good, as we've discovered. Actually, no, the whole lot's improving over recent years. I shouldn't lampoon it that hard, but so this one, it will be interesting to see what you get with beech as opposed to Manuka.
Yeah, the Scandinavian distillers aren't as constrained by convention and expectation as, say, the Scottish or American producers. There are just fewer sort of written or unwritten rules set in stone and in history. So they are free to just go a little bit wild, be a little bit innovative. And beech smoke will put us in mind of, say, a German Rauchbier. So the smoked beer, which is stunning, by the way. I absolutely love a good Rauchbier.
The one thing that is going to sort of paddock these ones somewhat, or at least this one, I believe they all are, they're all malt whiskies. So weirdo grains.
Oh, there is some rye coming up.
There's rye. Okay, all right. So with this one, and with most of them, we've got malt spirit as our one sort of point of our safe zone, and we just have to spread out from there. Now, I've had a cheeky nose of this one already, and it is quite unlike anything I was expecting, so this is going to be interesting.
Yes.
I'm going to have trouble describing this.
Homegrown heritage grains, but also locally grown barley from close to the distillery. A couple of quarter casks. What does that tell us? So, a small cask will mean lots of wood contact. What kind of cask would normally get turned into a quarter cask?
They'd normally be hacked together from casks normally being retired, I think.
Right.
Much in the way that hogsheads are made from, not necessarily retired, maybe they're being evolved, but much as they're being rebuilt from different cask types. I believe, I could be completely wrong. Quarter casks don't show up except in the marketing for Lefroy particularly often these days, but they're not a widely used cask at all. They're usually used for odds and ends that aren't big enough to fill into other casks, because they're not, no warehouse is built around the spec of a quarter cask. But yeah, you do get a lot more wood contact because they're smaller, so theoretically more rapid maturation.
Cooler climate and a younger whiskey.
Still, for a very cold climate like Denmark. See, I knew this was coming. I've been treading water here trying to think up a way of describing this whiskey, because it is really
it's
weird.
A gorgeous aroma. It really does smell like a very strongly smoked beer.
The smoke is there, but there's, and it's only I'm only just sure about this now. There's eucalyptus on it.
Yeah, it's a very really sappy aroma. It's just full of resins. It's not just the wood smoke, but also just the freshly hewn timber and just smelling that damp wood.
There's flat out gum tree on this one, which is very strange.
Lovely. Yeah,
they didn't specify where the wood came from.
That's beech tree.
That's the smoke.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what the quarter casks.
No, what casks are made, of course.
Not that they have the stipulations of Scotland, but they probably wouldn't have diverged from oak. But there's something going on in this one. That's very strange.
Oh, let's dive into that full strength, which I'll remind myself and you at home is 57.6% ABV, which is perilously strong. So
this is, of all the whiskies with weird noses that I'm going to taste completely blind, I truly don't know what this is going to taste like, what weird inflection this is going to take on the tongue, whether it's going to taste more conventional, more weird. I just don't know.
I'd say that is left an amazing, oily cling inside the glass. There's a clear line, streaks of
pretty
grease.
Grimy.
Which is excellent.
All right, no more beating around the bush.
Oh,
how
that's hot.
Weird.
Oh, it is smoky and spicy, like a very strong peppered salami, with oodles of sweet wood smoke, though. It's remarkable.
Nigh indescribable. There is so much going on at once, and it's all so peculiar.
Yeah.
There's fresh wood, sap. Sap is how the principal tasting note on this, aside from the beech smoke, which anyone that has enjoyed a few beech smoked beers will sort of know what's coming. It's a very savoury, very dry smoke, quite a salty smoke as it comes across. Completely unlike all of the wood characters coming through and the spirit character coming through, it really is like freshly sawn eucalyptus gum tree. It's crazy.
It is a smoke which is reminiscent of Rauchbier, as covered by the tasting notes, but it is also a very strong hint, especially on the finish, of extremely smoky cured meat.
There's char as well.
You're getting like a bacon or prosciutto or something like that, just with a...
I'm getting... It's more, when you're having a pepperoni and the fate befalls you, which will befall eventually any pepperoni eaters, which is to bite down on the whole peppercorn.
Yeah.
And you get this burst of black pepper flavour, which then dominates anything else you're tasting. Not an unpleasant, but just a surprise every time, and a very eclipsing flavour to stumble
because
upon.
of the extremely high strength we're tasting this at, so I'm going to water this somewhat.
I think this will change dramatically with water.
Yeah.
This also tastes quite a little bit like soaked green peppercorn, which shows up much less commonly. It shows up in actually Scandinavian, for that matter, expressions of fish. You'll find it coming along with your roll mops and things like that.
Oh, pine needles and seafood. I'm getting like smoked mussels now, on the nose even.
Piney. This is... I think I've been in this position before, of tasting Scandinavian whiskies and being completely at a loss as to how you do this, how this even happens.
This is an utterly different beastie after adding that water, whereas now... Oh, what am I tasting? Yeah, there's citrus, there's much less of that smoke. It's just really faded into the background by adding water. There's mint and pine.
I've got it. I've connected the dots. You know what this whiskey tastes like? gin.
Okay.
It tastes like barrel-aged gin.
Wow. Right.
And I know it isn't, and I know it isn't flavoured beyond the smoke.
Yeah.
But for all I can reckon, if someone had handed this to me and say, here's a weird barrel-aged smoked gin, I would have first gone... But I would have tasted it anyway, and I would have gone, hey, yeah, it checks out.
Yeah.
Had I not known, I could have easily been fooled. There is so much, menthol, cool pine needles. The juniper berries would have just manifested all on their own, I think.
Yeah. And to think this is just wood and malt. That is truly remarkable.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how malt goes in one end and this comes out the other. I don't know what you do with your still. I don't know what you do with your wood. I don't know whether the gnomes have gotten into this. I really, really don't know. It is an experience quite unlike any other whiskey, almost unlike any other whiskey we've tasted.
Our brief forays into continental European whiskey in the past have had similar results. We tried wild products from Switzerland and France, I believe, and possibly one Scandinavian whiskey before on the show. And each of them has been a truly unique character with truly unique character.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to give 2 scores for this one because it's so bloody different. And I know Heine wanted to score, and he's going to get a score, goddammit.
Yeah.
I will not deprive the man. But this is so divorced from the whiskey we've normally tasted and we've normally scored that I want to give the score with that caveat. The second, I am going to keep a rolling ranking of these whiskies to determine the Scandi level, the Scandi power level of this whiskey as compared to the other ones, so that we can have a little bit more of a contextual kind of a thing, which, until we get another data point, was going to mean exactly nothing.
Yeah.
So you're only going to get 1 score today, and you're going to get a ranking next time. Scores for this one is one of the hardest scores I think I've ever had to invent, because there's just scoring is so much a point of comparison. What is this in the vein of? Is it better than yada yada yada? There's like a big ranking of whiskies. Only it's vast. It contains thousands of sort of this whiskey library you have in your head. When something falls so outside of it, that's a problem. Because scoring something on its own merits, suddenly you're exposed as to just how little of a scientific process it is.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we've got a whiskey which has profoundly singular and realised flavours of pine needles, of sap, of smoke, and they come through really, really well. The mental loop-de-loop to do is to ask myself, is it working? And I just don't know. Am I enjoying this whiskey, or am I in the presence of this whiskey and I'm just kind of here? And I think it might be more the latter than the former. I just don't know if this one is mega for me. I think it's too strange. I'm spending all my time thinking about it and very little time just sort of laying back and enjoying it.
But again, that could just be because of a lack of familiarity with the style, since this is your first time approaching this particular style of whiskey making, which is why you're having to treat it as this outlier.
I know.
Because of not really knowing the genre. It's like if you're a classical music buff and you've been asked to review a jazz album, for instance. This is
I don't know. This is as much as this has got one foot in the someone being perplexed and mesmerized, someone on mushrooms for the first time, I don't know. And on the other hand is Ron Swanson throwing away the computer. It's somewhere between the two in terms of my gut reaction to this. So scores-wise, honest scores, I think this is a 72 for me. I think it's a fascinating whiskey. I don't think it's a very enjoyable whiskey for my palate. It's just not landing in a very comfortable space. It's a whiskey that it's like when you have to sit next to someone slightly weird on the bus. It's like, it's fine, but it's not my usual seat. Yeah. What do you? I
have a very
I think you have a very different take.
I do, yeah. I'm thinking this is obviously so far off the beaten track as far as whiskey goes, but it is hard to take it in isolation. I need a broader understanding of Scandinavian styles to fully evaluated, but I'm going to go back to basics. This is a whiskey with three very familiar elements. It has a malt, which has been smoked, and it's been in a barrel. this is a good base to work from. And what it's done with those is so unique, so singular, and so very enjoyable. I'm going to go straight into 90 points.
Okay.
It is a very young whiskey, 3 years maybe, possibly even a little less.
Well, vintage
And,
2019,
yeah.
so it's not old.
No, it's at most 3 years and a bit since it's a 2022 bottling.
In fact, no, they're saying here, bottle 2022,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we've probably got the brain
Yeah.
power to work that out.
I know, exactly. That's what I mean. It could be give or take
yeah.
a few months either side of 3 years. And it is potently flavorful. It's unique. It's innovative. It's fresh. It got me curious. And the flavors it has got, it's not just weird for weirdness' sake. They are enjoyable. The flavors that work together nicely. They bring through the smoke. They bring through the wood. And I think the malt as well. It's, for a very young whiskey from a relatively cool climate, it has gained so much character in such a short time and has got me more than anything excited to try more from across Scandinavia. It is so unchained to tradition and convention, like so much of other whiskey we usually try from the English-speaking world.
I think, call me equal parts curious and suspicious. In either regard, I am ready to learn more. So we will see if the Bizarro trend continues, or whether we find an island of familiarity some way through the range. But goodness knows we will find something on our way through, whether it's increasing delirious oddity or something more familiar. But we will find out. So Slanger, or whatever they say, Skål, I suppose.
Yes, our first exposure to the Berg whiskey from Thy of Denmark.
Crazy.